Save money, save a percentage of your income every month, which is what I've done. Save that into my pension over those years. Some years I didn't pay any into my pension. I've always had a pension. I've always paid into a pension. So I think the only exception is when COVID hit, 2019, 2021. I think for me, that was a huge period of uncertainty. I decided rather than pay into a pension, I would take more money home. So working full time, saving a percentage of my money into a pension during that whole time for those 43 years. Sometimes I saved a little into the pension. When our first son was born, we didn't have loads of money. We never used to go on foreign holidays. When we did go on holiday, we went to places like Cornwall, Devon, which were really good, but it did rain a lot. It didn't half rain a lot when we went on holiday. Some periods I couldn't pay much into my pension. When things went well at work, my income increased. So what happened for me, and I'm sure this will be different for different people. I think once I hit my 40s, we started to see income was good, and I think at the end of the month, we were seeing that we could save some money, which was good. In my 40s and 50s, job roles changed, income increased. I think COVID was a period that made lots of people think, am I working too much? Should I be spending more time with family? I certainly felt that way. Once COVID had tailed off in 2022 until 2025, I was paying as much as I possibly could into my workplace pension. I was also making sure that the company was paying the maximum they could pay into my pension. At the time, the maximum contribution from the company I was working for was 5%. When I was paying the most in, I was paying about 21% into my pension. But that's quite an extreme amount. To be able to do that, I've been quite strategic in installed new heating system, so new boiler, new radiators, so that we weren't spending more than we needed to on our energy bills. Did all the external repairs, things that were expensive to repair. New conservatory roof as well, fitted wardrobe. So all these large expenses which cost thousands of pounds, I made sure that all of this was taken care of while I was working full time. So in 2023, I decided that's it. I want to retire. So I started looking at the finances, started looking at what was in my pensions, what the expenses were at home, what sort of things we might need for emergency funds. And I also started to learn about pensions, learn about investment as well. I've never really invested before, so I started looking into that. At the back end of 2024, around October, I approached my company, said, look, I want to reduce my hours, want to go part-time. They agreed. They said, yeah, we'll let you go 2 days a week. So in April this year, April 2025, I reduced from 5 days a week working to 2 days a week working. And that was really good. It took maybe 3 months to adjust, which surprised me. What I found was happening first month and a half, even though I was only working 2 days a week, I was still trying to fit 5 days of work into those 2 days. So that's the first month and a half, realised I'm trying to do too much. So over the next month and a half after that, so 3 months into my part-time working, things were pretty much stable. I was working 2 days a week, and in those 2 days, I was actually doing 2 days of work in those 2 days a week, rather than trying to fit 5 days of work into those 2 days. It was a 3-month probationary period, actually, which was ideal because it took those 3 months to get used to the part-time work. I was working Tuesdays, Thursdays, which meant that I had some sort of continuity at work. Monday was day off, Wednesday day off, Friday day off. What I wanted to do in that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, fill those days doing things which are productive. Not necessarily work, but work, play, and having fun. Particularly during the summer, we'd go out on a Monday or a Wednesday. We did spend more lunch times than we should really have done, sat in the pub having lunch and a drink. That was nice. I think really it did feel a little bit like I was on holiday, which is fine. I think, I've been working for those 40 odd years. It was going to take some time to adjust, but, we are December now, as I said before, made redundant recently in the last couple of weeks. I have more time on my hands now than I plan to have just yet. That obviously is a challenge from a financial perspective because that part-time income was doing two things. It was paying the mortgage every month. It was paying into my pension. And that really, working those 2 days part-time, just took the pressure off my pension. You know, I'd draw down every month and then my work salary would pay back into my pension. Since April, I have been drawing every month from my pension, but because I've been paying back into that pension, I have been maintaining that level on my pension pot. So it feels like I will never run out of money in my pension pot. What I've also been doing, really since January this year, working up towards April, I was thinking about tax implications of working part-time from April. How do I draw from my pension? What about other income streams? It's probably a good idea for me to create another video which talks about how I reviewed my tax situation, how I managed working a part-time job and drawing from my pension, how I make sure that I'm not drawing too much so that I get taxed too much. I'm really conscious about making sure that as much of my pension pot goes into my pocket. I'm in the process now